If you are listening to this right now, it is not accidental. This message does not reach everyone. It reaches you because the moment has already passed where turning back was possible. When you see this sign, it's already too late. Not in the way fear once taught you, but in the way inevitability feels when it finally becomes gentle. You may have spent years worrying that you were behind, that life moved faster for others, that doors closed before you arrived, that chances expired while you were still trying to understand yourself. But what you're sensing now is not regret. It's recognition. Because the truth is, you were never late. You were protected. Long before you became conscious of this shift, something had already been set in motion. Quietly. Without asking for your permission. The path you're on now did not open when you chose it. It opened when the world realized you could no longer be shaped by noise. You didn't miss your moment. Your moment was delayed on purpose. And the strange part is, you can feel that now. There's a subtle calm underneath the confusion. A knowing beneath the questions. As if something inside you is saying, relax. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. That voice didn't exist before. Not like this. There was a time when silence felt unbearable. When being alone made your thoughts louder instead of clearer. When you needed distraction just to feel okay. People, messages, background noise, anything to remind you that you were connected to the world. But something changed. You didn't announce it. You didn't decide it in a dramatic moment. You simply stopped reaching outward the way you used to. Not because you gave up, but because it stopped working. Conversations started to feel hollow. Endless scrolling felt heavy. Small talk felt like static in your chest. And without fully understanding why, you began choosing quiet. At first, it felt like loss. Like being left behind while everyone else kept moving. But slowly, something else emerged. Silence stopped feeling empty. It started feeling steady. You began to notice that when the world went quiet, you didn't disappear. You actually became more solid, more present, more yourself. This is the moment most people misunderstand. They think isolation is a sign of failure. They call it loneliness, withdrawal, depression. But what's happening to you is different. This is the end of external dependency. The version of you that needed validation, constant reassurance, and emotional noise has completed its role. That identity did what it was meant to do. It kept you alive long enough to grow awareness. Now, life is pulling you inward. Not to punish you. Not to test you. But to reposition you. Before anything meaningful shifts on the outside, stability has to exist on the inside. Focus has to replace chaos. Clarity has to replace urgency. That's why distractions started falling away without effort. Why certain people drifted. Why situations that once consumed you suddenly lost their grip. You may have felt unsettled by this. Wondered why nothing external was happening. Why life felt paused, quiet, suspended. But this wasn't a pause. It was calibration. Life always pulls chosen ones inward before it moves them outward. Because the next phase doesn't tolerate fragmentation. You're not being tested right now. You're being positioned. And there's a difference you can feel in your body. Mistakes don't spiral the way they used to. Setbacks still happen, but they resolve faster. The emotional freefall that once followed a single misstep doesn't last. You've crossed a threshold. This is what alignment feels like. Not perfection. Not effort. Protection. There is a quiet buffer around your life now. A protected outcome window where even when things wobble, they don't collapse. Where lessons arrive without destruction. Where consequences teach instead of punish. You didn't earn this through struggle. You aligned with it through honesty. And with that alignment came a strange new awareness. You see patterns now. Not just in people, but in systems, environments, timing. You notice how energy moves before words do. How rooms feel before conversations begin. How intentions leak through behavior. You're less reactive. More observant. This isn't emotional numbness. It's observer consciousness. You're no longer absorbing everything around you. You're interpreting it. Standing slightly back, slightly above, not in ego but in clarity. You may have felt this shift when things that once triggered you didn't. When drama passed by without hooking into your nervous system. When you realized you could leave situations mentally before leaving them physically. That's not detachment from life. That's perception replacing entanglement. At this stage, environments stop shaping you. You start shaping them, simply by being stable inside them. And this is where it becomes impossible to go back. Because what's activating now isn't a habit or a mindset. It's a contract. Long before you had language for it, there were agreements made at a level deeper than memory. Not dramatic vows, quiet understandings. That at a certain point, you would wake up. Not all at once, but enough to never fully sleep again. That's why this shift feels sudden and non-negotiable. Why procrastination no longer works. Why hesitation doesn't delay growth the way it used to. You can feel life moving through you now instead of you chasing it. Destiny isn't something you're running toward anymore. It's something entering you. And your body knows it. Your nervous system is changing. Overstimulation feels intolerable. Crowds drain you faster. Surface-level engagement exhausts you. You crave depth. Time to think without interruption. This isn't burnout. It's biological alignment. Your system is recalibrating for long-term clarity instead of short-term survival. For focus instead of urgency. For presence instead of performance. Solitude becomes refinement here, not escape. And this is where the phrase, "too late," finally reveals its true meaning. It's too late to return to the old life. Too late to shrink yourself back into familiar discomfort. Too late to pretend you don't see what you see now. That life expired quietly while you weren't looking. And in its place, something steadier took root. You may notice reality rearranging itself around this new identity. Opportunities aligning without force. Distance growing where it's needed. Doors opening that don't require you to beg. This isn't luck. It's lock-in. Your timeline has stabilized. And the reassurance you've been waiting for is this. Nothing important has been lost. Nothing meaningful has passed you by. What feels like too late is actually liberation. Freedom from paths that were never yours. Release from versions of you that could not survive what's coming next. When you see this sign, it's already too late. Because the real story doesn't begin at the beginning. It begins after you stop trying to arrive. And realize you already have. And now you understand why this couldn't have reached you sooner. If it had, you wouldn't have heard it the same way. You needed to live through the confusion, the quiet detours, the moments where nothing made sense, so that when clarity arrived, it would land softly instead of shattering you. There's nothing left to prove. Nothing left to chase. The part of you that was running has finally slowed down enough to notice. You are already standing where the next chapter begins. Life will keep moving. Responsibilities will still exist. But something fundamental has changed. You are no longer searching for permission. You are no longer waiting for a sign. This was the sign. If this message resonated, don't rush to explain it. Let it settle. Let it integrate the way truth always does, quietly beneath the surface. And if you feel called to stay connected, to continue walking this path of awareness and alignment, you can do something simple. Not for the algorithm. Not for validation. But as a marker, to yourself, that you were here when this clicked. You can leave a comment, even just a single word, to anchor this moment. You can subscribe not because you need more answers, but because you recognize the frequency. More messages like this will find their way to you when the timing is right. Just like this one did. And remember, nothing important is behind you now. Everything real is unfolding from here.